Number one, bullshit is not lying. Lying is telling an untruth knowing that it is an untruth. A liar has to know what is true in order to know that what he is telling you is not true. A bullshitter, as per the definition by Harry Frankfurt, who wrote a fantastic essay on it, is somebody who has no regard for whether what they are saying is true or not true. They have no reference point. They do not recognise the relevance of truth. Their concern is not with whether or not something is true. Their intention is to persuade. So something is valuable or not valuable in order to persuade, but they're indifferent to whether or not it's true, which is a quantitatively different thing. And Harry Frankfurt makes the argument that actually bullshit, although it's more acceptable within society, is actually more pernicious because, that was a good word, wasn't it, pernicious? It's actually more worse because somebody who has no regard for whether something was true or not has less regard for the truth, less respect for the truth than somebody who knows what the truth is and disagrees with it shit. Number two, the sign language for bullshit is this, which I think is just perfect. Number three, bullshit is an art form, it's not a science. Art is all about the way that it makes you feel. Art is designed to evoke a feeling in you. And bullshit is in exactly the same way designed to evoke a feeling. So it's more of a creative thing. It's all about the communication and the depth of communication and the feelings that it makes you feel rather than a technical aspect. Number four, because bullshit is an art and because bullshit is designed to make you feel a certain way, it is generally very appealing. It's nice because it can be whatever you want it to be. Bullshit can mould reality into a shape that is pleasing to you. So it's nice to be bullshitted to. If anyone wants any evidence of this, you need look no further than America. Donald Trump tells people what they want to hear. Do they know that what he is saying is not always true? Yeah, they generally do. But it's much nicer to be told something that makes you happy. It's much nicer to be told that you don't have to worry about reality. Just sort of take this on board and it gives you good feelings. So bullshit is actually much nicer to be told than the truth, which very often is got to include things which are unpleasant because that's the nature of reality. And often nicer than lies, which have, as I said before, to reference the truth in some way. Number five, bullshit is very often undertaken without people realising they're doing it. Harry Frankfurt defined it beautifully and said that bullshit very often happens, and it has to happen, if you are asked to opine on something about which you have no expertise. A good example of this would be Brexit negotiations, from the point of view that we're podiatrists. Most people are plumbers or gardeners or retail workers or managers. We're not international trade specialists. But we had to have an opinion about something that we were not qualified to have an opinion on. So bullshit came down in an almighty cascade, and from both sides, and it was just a question of which bullshit we chose to believe. And when most people talk about Brexit, when they've had the International Trade Secretary giving their informed view and then they go to Margaret in Catford to hear about what she thinks, that's bullshit, because those people don't know anything about what they're talking about, but they're still asked to have an opinion. Very difficult to avoid in clinic when somebody asks you to have an opinion on something, when somebody says, what do you think about this, and you're not actually that familiar with that condition. The temptation to bullshit is overwhelming. Number six, last one. If a piece of bullshit has been promoted, if a piece of bullshit has been put out there into the world, and it is pleasing bullshit, because of course, remember, with bullshit you don't have to reference whether or not it's true. You can make up whatever fantasy story or world you want to be. calling out bullshit is really unpopular. Because somebody has given you a story that you want to believe, and they've done that deliberately, coming up with the story that you would want to believe. Somebody who comes along and says, actually, that's not quite true, is going to be as popular as a fart in a submarine. So bullshit, when it is called out, is almost invariably provokes an angry response, because people don't want to have their bullshit called out, whether they're the bullshitter or the person who swallowed the bullshit. It is really, really hard to actually look at that and say, do you know what, I was wrong there. I believed something that I should not have believed on scant evidence.